It is a privilege for me to introduce our speaker for today, though he really needs no introduction to this distinguished group of men and women. Our speaker is a person that we all know, highly respect, and greatly love. He is a strong pillar in our church, in our town, and in our county. He is our friend and mentor. James is a one-of-a-kind person in Fayette County, and that's sad because we need more of his kind in the world today. James is an influential person. His presence makes us all want to stand taller, walk straighter, and live better. God is richly blessing James with a long life, a remarkable life, a blessed life. His is a life well lived. It is my privilege and high honor now to present to you Mr. Methodist of Fayette County, your friend and mine, Mr. James Watkins.
That speech for Gary. Just a minute. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary, for your introduction. I brought my own crowd, I guess you all know that. And I want to introduce them. Jenny's my twin brother, he's sitting right over here. Alice and Mark, her husband Bill, sitting over here. Sue Willard, her husband Hal. And niece Robin Ernst and her husband Joe. Her son Chuck Watkins and his wife Etta. Dr. Dale Sellers. Granddaughter Kimberly. Granddaughter Eddie. Granddaughter Katie. Brother-in-law Jim and Montez Sibley. Granddaughter Slayer and wishing her great-grandson when they're here. Caregivers, Janet Chastain. Margie Banana. And my ex-caregiver, Terry Sauer. I didn't have anything to do with it. Terry leaving. She can come back anytime she wants to. And I do want to say this about Terry and Margie. They were very helpful to me with Sib in her later days. And they've been helpful to me in the grief with my sweet Sib, especially Terry. Terry was the facilitator of grief share at her church, and she just knows what to say at the right time. And I thank you so much, Terry. Now we'll get into the old Watkins boys. I was born December the 8th, 1990. It's been 99 years ago, I guess you all know that. But I want you to remind you of it. We've had good years, we've had bad years those times. But I was born in Copperhill, Tennessee, and I don't remember a whole lot about Copperhill, except that we lived on the hill, close to the water tank. When Jennings and I was born, my sister Eloise was about 2.5 years old, and you know what she wanted to do with us? Throw us in the water tank. The water tank was just above the house. And I don't think she wanted to be second place. The other things I remember about Copperhill is that my brother, Paul, could fly a kite up there. He'd stake it out, and his homemade kite, by the way. He'd stake it out, and they'd fly all night. Now, that's hard to believe, but that's the truth. Another thing I remember about Copperhill was there was a grocery store across the river, and you had to walk across the river, and they had slants in the walkway, and you could see the water down there. It looked like it's going to come get you when you walked across there. Of course, I was 5 years old at that time. Another thing, we had a neighbor that had an automobile, and one time he took me up on Kemsey Mountain, which is about 6 miles, I guess, from Copperhill, and watched bald eagles fly. I don't know whether they're still up there or not, they probably are. And the last thing I can remember about Copperhill, my dad sent Jennings and I down to the depot to get a newspaper one Sunday. And we walked on the railroad tracks. We saw a battery of some type there, and we wanted to put it on the railroad tracks to let the train run over to smash it up. Some guy saw us do it, and he went, take it off. Well, in the summer of 1925, we moved to Smyrna, Georgia. We moved in with our grandfather, Watkins. I think the reason we moved down there, I know Dad had a barber shop in Blue Ridge. He was a barber, not in Blue Ridge, but in Copperhill. He had a barber shop and a grocery store. And the whole block burned in 1925. We left there and went down and stayed with my grandfather in the summer. And my grandfather was one of these guys that did farming. And he planted seeds, of course, plants. He would load his wagon up in the afternoon and drive down to the meal where they didn't drive here, the meal bullet, down to the stockyards in Atlanta, spend the night, and then peddle his fruit and vegetables over the streets of Atlanta the next day to come back. Well, I can remember 2 or 3 things that he asked me to do. One of them was he was planting sweet potato plants. And I can hear him now say, boy, hand me those tater slips. And another thing that he got me to do, or had me do, was pick cotton. First cotton I'd ever picked, and he didn't even saw really. And he paid me for it. That was the first paying job I ever had. Probably didn't have over 15 cents, but I thought I was rich. Well, that spring or fall, rather, we moved to Blue Ridge to a house that was close to the railroad. And back then, this is in 1925, fall of 25, all the trains going from Atlanta to Knoxville came through Blue Ridge. And I think there was, well, I know there's at least two each way, and then they call another train the Murphy branch, and then there's several freight cars, or freight trains came through. And we had a water tank right close to the house. And I think they tried to make it much ragged as they could when they lowered that spout to fill the water tank on the engine. And you know, back then, all the trains were run by coal. And we picked up enough coal that fall to run our fireplace that winter. Now, I don't know, of course, I know we didn't have any money, but we didn't know it. Everybody was saying shape correctly. But we had a good time. I had, at that time, when there's 6 of us, 6 siblings. And we lived there for close to a year. We moved over to Morgan, Georgia. The only thing I can remember about Morgan was that we had a garden, and in the fall we took the corn and put it in a little red wagon and pulled it all the way over to Mineral Bluff to the mill to have it ground into corn meal, pulled it back. It seemed to me like it took us all day. My older brother, Paul, he was 5 years older than Jennings and I. Of course, we were 6 at that time. Then we moved back to Blue Ridge to a place above the schoolhouse. We lived there for a couple of years. It was in the edge of an apple orchard. Then we moved to another place, another house in Blue Ridge that was close to the apple orchard. And my mother and dad, let me back up. My mother and the rest of the family decided they'd go to Gainesville. His relatives and Lee Jennings and I there with Dad. Alice had come along in 1929. This was probably about 1930.
I came along in 1930.
Anyhow, let me finish my story. Anyhow, Mama and Paul was driving, of course, my older brother. And Dad was supposed to take care of Jennings and I. Well, Dad had to go to Atlanta for some reason or other after maybe one day with us, or one day and night. Got a lady by the name of Miss Lawrence to stay with us. Well, I think Jennings ran her off, to be frank with you. We was left there by ourselves. Well, Dad had, I think, a couple of cars, a pickup truck he rented. And he told Miss Lawrence, says, now the key's up on the mantel there to that pickup truck. So-and-so is going to come by and pick it up. And you give him the key. So, of course, after Miss Lawrence left, I heard what Dad told her. Well, I decided I'd get the key and take a little ride in that truck. I think I was 9 years old. Anyhow, I got in it and I watched Dad and my older brother drive, and I thought, well, this won't be a problem. So I finally pushed the clutch in, got it in gear, stomped down on the accelerator, then let the clutch out, and the truck jumped about 30 feet out of the apple. I don't know how I got it stop, but it did. I got out of it, left it there, of course. And Dad never did ask how that truck got in the orchard. And that guy never did come and get it. So, other things happened in 1929. My grandmother, Penson, died, and she was just a saint to all of us. And these stories are kind of hard to tell. One of them was, I was standing under her by the side of a hay rack. I don't know whether I touched it or not, but anything fell on me, hit me in the head. I had a concussion and was out of it for about 5 or 6 days, maybe longer. And another accident I had in 1929 was I was walking along the highway with my sister Ruth, and a car ran over us. And the guy pulled us out from under the car, left us on the side of the road. I had a broken leg, sprained wrist. She had internal injuries. We never did find out who the guy was. They were building the dam at Blue Ridge at that time, and he was one of the workers over there. I could have probably identified him if, I'd seen him the next day or two, but it's several weeks later, and they picked up some guy. I don't know whether he's it or not. But like I say, there's 2 good things happened in 1929. Alice came along, he was born in 1929, January 4th. And I joined the Methodist Church in 1929. Now, I haven't been what you'd call a very Christian since 1929. But along the way, I've learned a whole lot. And I've changed a whole lot. And I'm going to get into my other years now, and some of them have not been so great. I guess I have time for the chicken story. I'm going to read it, but I don't want to leave it out. Jennings and I were about 12 or 13 years old. We went down to LJ and visited our cousin Wayne. Wayne was growing and chickens. So he insisted we take some of them back to the Ridge. And Dad had recently had our house painted canary yellow. And the buckets of paint were out in the barn, and that's where we built a little pen for our chickens and put them in there. A little later, they were visited by some game roosters. Those roosters would fly over the fence and get in there and get into their feed. Somewhere they got in the paint too. Well, anyhow, we found out who the game roosters belonged to. They belonged to the city policeman. And we had asked him to put them up. He didn't do it. We told our mother about it. And you know what she told us? She said, just shoot them. That's what we did. Dad said, just shoot them and throw them out in the street. Well, that's what we did. Well, about 30 minutes later, here comes, I think they had 2 crops in, and well, he didn't show up, but the chief of police did, Charlie Johnson. And he showed up to arrest us. My mother said, well, she's a feisty little lady. She said, you're not taking those boys anywhere. She says, they'll be down there whenever the trial comes up. Well, anyhow, I city hall, that's where the trial would be, and well, you could put a couple of these tables in it, and probably be full. Anyhow, knowing the news to travel pretty fast up the Blue Ridge, and about everybody in town was there that could get there. They're hanging in the windows and going doorways and everything. Well, they brought the case up, and they fellow by the name of Colonel William Bush was the city attorney. And I think the mayor's name was Johnson. Jenny may not remember which. Well, he and I may not agree on who it was, but anyhow, it was Johnson or somebody. Anyhow, the trial went on and went on and went on, and arguing and this and that. And finally, Colonel Buck says, well, I know there's an ordinance in here somewhere about shooting at random. But Jennings says, we wasn't shooting at random, we was shooting at chickens. Well, that broke up the crowd. The place up, and the mayor says, well, as Colonel said, we're just going to have to hold this over till you can find that ordinance, and we'll bring it back to the time. Well, of course, the case never did come back. They never did find the ordinance. I guess they forgot about it. Well, anyhow, in 1955, Jennings and I had been in business with the Line 1 line for 10 years, and we'd sent out a nice brochure. And Colonel Buck got a copy of it. Well, he wrote a nice letter about the Watkins boys, how morally great they were, what good citizens they were, and all such stuff as that. I guess he forgot about trying to put us in jail. Well, to top it off, my mother wrote a note to me sitting in the article. I want to read that second. She wrote to me. She says, Dear James, well, you made the headlines of Blue Ridge again, and you didn't have to paint a rooster or rump to do it. I think it was very nice of Colonel Budd to give you this recognition. Now, about 10 years ago, Bob Martin and I went to Blue Ridge. And we went right by this guy's house and drew those roosters. And there's a rooster, a pretty one, as pretty one as you ever saw a game rooster, walked right across the road in front of us. So evidently somebody up there still raising those game roosters. Jenny, you'll know this story, or yes, you'll know who I'm talking about anyhow. I was 17 and I asked my mother to drive part of the car one night. She said no. Well, I was spent with a little girl by the name of Doris in high school. I wanted to go see Doris. I wanted to go see her pretty bad. So I slept upstairs in the bedrooms upstairs, and there's a door in the balcony outside of the bedroom, and there's a trellis that ran down the side of from the balcony down to the ground. So I pretended to go to bed. What I did, of course, was sneak the car to the key card, or the keys to the car, and went out that door and climbed down the trellis, went up to to the garage, which was a good way from the house. But back in those days, you know, you had to crank them, and they made a little racket, so I guess my mother heard it. But anyhow, I went to see Doris. Oh, boy, that's a mistake. When I got to Doris's house, she lived in a boarding house. It was a Kincaid house, Alice, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, there's a teacher came to the door when I knocked on the door. They rented rooms for teachers. I said, "Is Doris here?" She says, "Yes, he's in there with Apostle Styles." Well, I thought that Apostle was there to see the teacher, because he is a good bit older than I am, or I was. But he is really there to see Doris. So I asked Doris, "You want to go?" Right? "Yeah." "Come on, Apostle." Well, I wind up with the teacher, Apostle winds up with Doris. And a bad night all the way around. Well, of course, my mother found out I had the car, and I called the devil for a while about that too. But after I finished high school, time's flying. I got a job in Alexandria, paid 12.5 cents an hour, 10 hours a day, no overtime. And that's the only job that I could find around there. But anyhow, in 1940, they began the draft. And I knew it'd get me 20 years old, single. So I went on and joined it. Went to Atlanta Airport, interviewed with a Major Ellis. And he asked me why I wanted to be in the Air Corps, and I told him I wanted to learn to fly. Well, he accepted me, and of course I was sworn in and went back to the airport. I was there 6 weeks and got transferred to Memphis, Tennessee. The only training I had when I got to Memphis was how to run operations, and that was just answer the teletype and get the weather report and so forth for planes coming in and out. Well, I'd been there about 3 or 4 weeks, and I was on what we call the alert crew on Sunday morning. About 6:30, a full colonel come in, says, "Is my plane ready?" And I looked at the ready board and I said, "No, sir." He says, "Why not?" I said, "Well, the mechanic didn't, so I'm going to breakfast." He says, "Well, you get out there and pre-fly my airplane then." I told him I didn't know how. He said, "Well, get out there and I'll show you." And he did. And I've never forgotten it. Another thing that happened in Memphis, 1941, about October, I think. First B-26 I'd ever seen came in there and is on a training flight. And the crew spent the night and come in, and they came in the next morning, pre-flighted the airplane. And everything seemed all right. They took off, and I watched them take off. And then got about 75 feet in the air. Left engine started smoking. Next thing you know, the train went straight down. Well, the Army had given us a fire truck and an ambulance about a week before that, but no training to anybody. Well, a guy by the name of Spencer and one by the name of Kilgore, and First Sergeant Rubley grabbed the fire engine, and I grabbed the ambulance, and we went to the scene. And when we got there, Kilgore and Spencer ran inside the airplane and got 2 men out. And we were trying, and I was standing at the back door with the stretcher. And we were going back to get the others. And at that time, the airplane exploded. And we had to get out of there. We got 2 of them out. I drove them there, the ambulance to the hospital. One of them survived and the other one didn't. And that really shook me up. You know, I could go on for hours. I haven't covered a whole lot of my life. But I do want to tell you one thing. And I've had a lot of help from a lot of people, a lot of them right in this room. And I found Christ. I found him in a good way. And I've learned to love everybody. I may not love them, or I may not like what everybody does, but I love them sincerely. And with that, I hope that I'll always have a nice trip home. And maybe I'll come back and finish this thing. And it's going to take more than a day. So thank you for coming. And thank you for listening to all this stuff.